It's a beautiful night for baseball, and live from Miller Park in Milwaukee, Sportsnet LA presents the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Milwaukee Brewers in Game 2 of this three-game series. Hi again, everybody. Charlie Steiner, Oral Hershiser. We begin with injury news, and not all of it's very good. In fact, most of it's bad. Clayton Kershaw is back in Los Angeles, having his lower back looked at. His start on Friday is a very dicey proposition. Beyond that, maybe we'll know more tonight or perhaps tomorrow. As far as Jock Peterson is concerned, he ran into the wall last night, injured the right shoulder, unavailable tonight, not knowing whether or not he'll be able to go tomorrow. So the Dodgers are playing with a short bench tonight. Yasmani Grandal, Scott Van Slyke, and Chris Taylor, and that is it. And then you throw into the mix that the Dodgers are starting their ninth different starting pitcher tonight, who is making his first big league start, and that's Brock Stewart.
Yeah, Brock Stewart, the ninth start. We used the most starters last year, 16 in Major League Baseball, but this young man has seen every level of professional ball other than rookie ball, starting in A-ball. And you know what? The last guy that started in A-ball and ended up in the big leagues was Hideo Nomo back in 1995. But Brock brings about a 93 to 95 mile-an-hour fastball up here. His best secondary pitch is his changeup. He's developing a slider, which has improved since he got to AAA because he changed the grip. So it's getting a little bit more like a slider, not as much like a cutter. And this guy has a father that was a scout and also a coach, so he comes from baseball pedigree and he expects to do well.
And he's from Normal, Illinois. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Alana will join us, tell us all about the roster moves that have been made today and what may lie ahead. Dodgers and Brewers, Game 2, coming up next. Wednesday night here in Milwaukee. A picture-perfect 72 degrees. The Brewers have taken the field, and as play begins tonight, the Dodgers at 43-36 trail the Giants by 6. Dodgers have won 2 in a row and 8 of their last 11. And here's the lineup Dave Roberts has put together tonight, courtesy of Honda, with Chase Utley and Corey Seager at the top. Seager's got an 11-game hitting streak, his second 11-game hitting streak of the season. Turner and Gonzalez 3 and 4. Kendrick hitting 5th. Trace Thompson in center field, at least for the foreseeable future, with Jock Peterson down. Yasiel Puig in right. A.J. Ellis catching. Brock Stewart, of course, is making his Dodger debut against the 31-year-old right-hander, Junior Guerra.
Junior Guerra's life changed when he split his fingers and developed a changeup with that, and that came about. He was a reliever at the time and started to throw it, but really didn't have a very good feel for it. So this last winter ball, they put him as a starter in winter ball, gave him his side works and more innings down there, developed a feel for it, and really changed his life. His last outing against the Dodgers, there's been one in between, but was one of his worst of the year. He had pretty good control, only walked a guy in 5 1/3 innings, but the command was off, made a lot of mistakes in the middle of the plate, gave up 5 earned runs, and the Dodgers hit him around.
A 2-time Wichita Wignut in 2013 and 2011. In 2012, he pitched at Yucatan. So he has bounced around, and finally at the age of 31, he is at the major league level. Our closed captioning is brought to you by First 5 California. Talk, read, sing, it changes everything. Well, he certainly has a Hollywood name, Brock Stewart. He's going to make his Dodger debut here in just a matter of moments. The Dodgers 7 over 500, and this is game 6 of a 7-game road trip. Finish it up tomorrow, a matinee, then the Dodgers come home on Friday. Chase Utley stepping in, and we're ready to play. Into right and foul, well hit. It's 0-1. Utley at .260 with 5 home runs and 25 runs batted in, but boy, has he struggled this month. Last night, 1 for 4 and a walk. But this is a place where he has hit extremely well over the course of his career. Utley in Milwaukee, .377 lifetime. 1 ball and 1 strike.
He likes the batter's eye here. Guys will tell you when they're hot in a certain park, they see the ball very well. A little glare out there today so far. The sun has not set, of course. So the sun in center field is reflecting off the batter's eye right now.
Utley to second base. Easy hop for Scooter Gennett. So Utley is retired and Seager stepping in. Corey red hot, an 11-game hitting streak. It's his second 11-game hitting streak of the season. In this one, he's hitting .422 with a home run, 7 doubles and a triple. Last night, Seager hitting 3rd would triple and score a run. He'd also walk. Just underway. Guerra misses high, 1 ball and no strikes.
A little early pressure on the Dodger offense, knowing that Brock Stewart is going for them. Somebody who started an A ball this year and has moved all the way through the ranks. So I would think that the offense understands that they're going to need to get the young man some runs, and also would make him feel a lot better as far as the butterflies to take them on with a lead.
In right field for a base hit. Seager's hitting streak now a season high 12. And he is on his way to second base with a stand-up double. Corey Seager, his 20th 2-base hit of the year.
If he's not at the top of the ranks for rookie shortstops, he's right there in the top 3, and he continues to add to those statistical categories. And the way he's swinging the bat right now, and as hot as he has been after April, you would think that he might be #1 in every category by the end of the year.
Seager leads all National League shortstops now with 91 hits. As Justin Turner steps in. Turner at .250. The Dodgers looking to get the early lead. Turner, 500 hitter against the Brewers this year. First pitch swinging, flies to right. Seager's tagging, and he's on his way to third. Flores throw way too late and way too wide. 2 out. Junior Guerra. His first name is Junior. Our research department scouring the internet to come to the realization that Junior is Junior. 31 years of age, and as we mentioned, he has bounced around. He has pitched for the Wichita Wingnuts twice, pitched in Italy. You'll go through the record book. How did he do in Italy? Quote, stats not available.
Well, from 2009 to 2014, he was with non-affiliated baseball teams, Europe, Mexico, around, because he had been suspended for performance-enhancing drug. So he had to find another place to play baseball for a while.
That's 2 trips to the Wingnuts.
Yeah, and resurrected his career and cleaned out his system and has really learned how to pitch in a very natural way by splitting his fingers to get that changeup that has really helped his career.
Making his 11th start of the year. That's Seager leading from third. Gonzalez takes low. Adrian on base 5 times last night. 3 for 3, a walk, and he got hit by a pitch. And this year he's hitting .347 on the road, just a .188 back at Dodger Stadium. 2-1. Now 3-1. Overall, Gonzalez is at .272. And .420 lifetime here at Miller Park. Takes a walk. And now Kendrick coming up. And Howie's been hot. He's had at least a hit in 12 of his last 14 games, during which time he's hitting .349.
A small little hitting streak right now where he's hit 4 consecutive games.
First and third, 2 out. Gonzalez faking.
That is truly a fake when he bluffs stealing.
He hasn't attempted a stolen base this year. Kendrick waits the 1-0. 2 balls, no strikes. Howie with runners in scoring position this year, just 195. Of course, got off to a terrible start, hitting a .150 in April. Slowly but surely he's coming around. He's a lifetime .290 hitter. Fouls it off to the right. 2-1.
Some of the hope of the Dodger offense improving, because early on most of the kids were carrying the offense, and we were waiting on Adrian Gonzalez to come out of his slump, Howie Kendrick to come out of his slump, Justin Turner to come out of his slump, and now those 3 veterans look like they're doing that. We're getting so much production from Corey Seager, Trace Thompson, Jock Peterson.
2-1 to Kendrick. Now 3-1. Jake Peavy goes for the Giants tonight in Oakland. And he has turned it around the last 4 or 5 starts. Dodgers trail San Francisco by 6. Tonight for the Dodgers, their 80th game. Just about at the halfway mark.
Give Adrian a head start there at first base now with the 3-2 count. Chris Carter's actually going to play behind him over there. Guard that hole a little bit more that Howie loves.
3-2. Gonzalez will get the head start. There he goes. Here's the pitch. Ground ball to third. That's Aaron Hill. And that's that for the Dodgers. Have a look at Brock Stewart getting ready to throw his first big league pitch when we come back. The manager of the Milwaukee Brewers, and they've struggled this year. 34 up, 42 down, and 16 behind the Cubs. Here's the Honda starting lineup put together by Council, beginning with VR and Scooter Gennett. Ryan Braun, a 9-game hitting streak, and Jonathan Lucroy been hitting over 300 all year. Chris Carter at first, Aaron Hill at third, Kirk Neuenhuis in center field, Ramon Flores the right fielder, Junior Guerra pitching and batting ninth, and this is Brock Stewart.
Brock Stewart, A-ball, AA, AAA, and now in the big leagues, all in about 3 months. Really unheard of. He's going to bring about a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. There's the Stewart family. His dad's on the far end with his hand against his chin.
And Trace Thompson in center field, surrounded by Kendrick and Puig. And Brock Stewart's first pitch is a ball outside. 1 ball, no strikes. He whistles a 93-mile-an-hour fastball past VR, and it's 1-1.
Talked to Matt Hergis, the AAA pitching coach, and Matt gave me a very nice scouting report on Brock. He'll pitch around 93, can touch 95.
1-2.
You would think with the adrenaline here, Charlie, and the first big league inning, the velocity be up, but he looks very composed and repeating his delivery already, pouring in those strikes.
A ball and 2 strikes just underway. The Dodgers failed to score in the top half of the inning. Missing high. He's from Central Illinois, Bloomington Normal, where Illinois State is situated, and that's where he played. Originally drafted by the Mets 5 years ago. He opted to go to school instead, and at the time they were thinking about him as an infielder. Now it's 3-2.
Got a shot here that this one was very close. Just a bit outside.
Well, his first batter has been struck out. And the ball is going to the dugout. And the Stewart family is ecstatic.
I love the fact that he's pounding the strike zone with the nerves and the butterflies, but having confidence in that 93 to 94 mile-an-hour fastball. He's got some good life. Love the fact that he gets down the hill, gets closer to the hitter with that 6'3" body.
About 215 pounds. And there's a strike to Scooter Gennett. Well, with the immediate uncertainty of Clayton Kershaw, who's back in Los Angeles, they're looking at his lower back. Quickly ahead, 0-2. Julio Urias is just going to stay with the club apparently through the All-Star break. Dodgers need as much depth as they can in the rotation. Now let's see what Stewart can provide. Well, first two batters, strikeouts.
Meteoric rise here to the big leagues all the way from A ball, but right about now he might be thinking, what took them so long to get me here? Boy, a couple of nice strikeouts right there, just pounding strikes. And he got to AAA this year. Only 3 starts there, but in the 3 starts he struck out 27 guys and only walked 2.
Now here's Ryan Braun. Braun riding a 9-game hitting streak. Sixth leading hitter in the league at .322. During this 9-game hitting streak, he's at .405, 15 for 37. Scoreless with 2 out of the bottom of the first, and a ground ball easy hop for Seager, and an easy first inning for Brock Stewart. The only guy who's not standing is his dad, who's currently a coach for the Tampa Bay Rays. A cool customer. He expected it all along from his kid. First inning couldn't have gone any better, and his dad, Jeff, we unnecessarily gave him a promotion. He is in fact a scout with the Rays. I just identified it and called him a coach. In fact, he was the coach at Illinois State University, where his son played, but did not play for his dad there. Trace Thompson takes a strike, and it's 0-1. It'll be Thompson and Puig and A.J. Ellis. 12 pitches, 8 strikes. And under control.
That'll get it done. Looked like he only threw one little breaking ball to start out Scooter Gennett with a little backdoor cutter / slider, but other than that, it was Powder River. He's Got the big league hair working.
As long as you got the big league arm.
that'll make your hair big league.
And he's got the Hollywood name, Brock Stewart. Trace Thompson fouls it off to the right, 2-2. Thompson at .238 with 11 home runs and 27 runs batted in. Thompson down on strikes. That's the 52nd time Thompson has been struck out in 194 at-bats. One out, nobody on, and here's Yasiel Puig coming up. Puig, since coming off the disabled list 8 days ago, is 8 for 24 with a home run and 3 runs batted in. That's a .333 clip, lifting his average to .248. Takes high and inside. Dodgers and Brewers wrap it up with a matinee tomorrow. It'll be Kenta Maeda and Zach Davies. First pitch 11:10 Pacific. The Dodgers will fly home and get into LA in time for a good late dinner and stay home until after the All-Star break. Here's the 1-1 inside, 2-1. Well, the All-Star break obviously big for all clubs, but the Dodgers, the way the bullpen has been taxed so much lately, Dave Roberts really has to be judicious in how he uses the bullpen down the stretch. And he's got the young rookie tonight, Stewart, going. And so they're hoping to get as many innings as possible, hoping for the best, fearing for the worst as Puig swings and misses. It's 2 balls and 2 strikes. And that's what a manager has to do.
He has had some challenges for a first-year manager and even for a veteran manager. Big challenges this year for the Dodgers.
Puig takes low. It's 3 balls and 2 strikes. Junior Guerra. At 31, making his rookie season. To third base. Aaron Hill will throw out Puig. And that'll bring up A.J. Ellis. Ellis has had a chance to sleep in his own bed the past couple of nights. Of course, he lives outside Milwaukee. And A.J. more of a professorial type, catching for the rookie tonight. Outside and low, 1 ball. And no strikes to A.J. Ellis, hitting .210 with a home run and 11 runs batted in.
Brock Stewart should be very comfortable with A.J. behind the plate. If he just follows his fingers and his targets, listens to him, if all of a sudden you lose your release point or something, he'll do the best he can to get him back on track.
Into center field. Kurt Neuenhuis. And a 1-2-3 inning for Junior Guerra. Lucroy, Carter, and Hill to bat at the bottom of the 2nd.
The first inning of work in his Major League Baseball debut could not have gone smoother for Brock Stewart. I would imagine certainly it has something to do with skill, and my guess is some adrenaline as well. Earlier today, about 3 o'clock this afternoon, Brock Stewart emerged from the Dodgers clubhouse, walked up the dugout steps, kind of looked over the rail, and took in the sights and sounds of Miller Park. He did it a couple of times today, guys, when I saw him come out and just take a deep breath and see what the sights were, and he also came out pretty early to get warmed up with A.J. Ellis.
I guess it must have been not unlike the scene from Hoosiers, that famous scene where it's 15 feet from the foul line to the basket. It's 10 feet in the air. It's 60 feet, 60 inches, 60 feet, 6 inches at this level. And now it's just a matter of a few more decks behind home plate. And the enormity of it all is just beginning to set in. Lucroy, meanwhile, falls behind quickly. No balls and 2 strikes. You don't get a view like that, certainly at Ogden and beyond. Ogden is where he first broke in with the Dodgers. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Ogden, Great Lakes, Rancho, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. And at the minor league level, opponents hit a grand total of 186 against him.
Well, congratulations to Julio Urias, who got his first big league win yesterday. And yesterday we complimented him on his pre-pitch routine. And Brock Stewart seems to have the same kind of rhythm where he gets on the rubber and he does the same thing every time. Little stretch, looks down, brings his glove up around his face, and then sets his sights on where he wants to deliver the ball.
Up the middle. There's Seager behind the bag, throwing him out. 4 in a row for Stewart. So we're all getting a chance to watch Brock Stewart together for the first time. Now here's Chris Carter. When he hits them, they go a long way and fairly often. But he also has been struck out 96 times in 264 at-bats, so he can be had. Outside, 1 ball, no strikes. That was Tom Halley and the crew chief at first base tonight. Toby Basner, a vacation reliever, calling balls and strikes tonight. Carter swings and misses. It's 1-1.
Love the run on that fastball right there. That ball started near the middle of the plate and ended up on the corner. Had a little sink to it at 94.
The 1-1. There's a strike. There's a slider and 1-2.
His 3rd slider of the day so far. Threw 1 in the first inning. That was, he breezed through. This one at 88. Cut action out there.
The 1-2 is high. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Aaron Hill is on deck. And the 2-2 on the way. Well, that's one way to beat the shift. It finally reaches right field. Bat shattered. And Carter is aboard with a base hit.
He jams him in a big way. You see the Dodger infield shifted all the way around for the pull hitting, especially on the ground. Carter and then shattering the bat right off the ends of his knuckles, finds that hole.
So Carter is aboard with a single. That's the first hit given up by Stewart. Here's Aaron Hill into short right, and it's drop in front of Puig. And with Puig mishandling it, Carter goes to 3rd. Well, you had a bleeder and a bloop.
Yeah, it'll be a base hit and an error on Yasiel Puig with the bobble out there. And again, these Brewer hitters are getting jammed because there's such great run on Brock Stewart's fastball. They're not used to seeing that right now. Maybe the second time around or the order they'll get used to it, but these right-handers are having their knuckles taken off, but they're finding good fortune.
Runners at the corners with one out. Puig tried to rush the play and it cost him. Now here's Kirk Neuenhuis stepping in. Neuenhuis, a local product. Born in Santa Monica, grew up in Denver, and then attended Azusa Pacific. Outside, 2 balls and no strikes.
That's the first changeup we've seen, which really is his best out pitch. Great movement, good arm speed. Looked like the fastball coming out of his hand, and then the velocity taken off down to 81.
2-0 Flores on deck. Missing outside. 3-0. A broken bat bleeder to the right side of the infield. Hill with a bloop hit to right. First and third, 1 out. 3-1 now to Kirk Neuenhuis.
Love the height of the pitch that Brock is throwing right now, right down there by the kneecaps. Stay right there, you get a chance for a ground ball double play.
3-1. To left and deep. Kendrick is back, and it is gone. A home run. A 3-run home run for Kirk Neuenhuis. And the Brewers take a 3-0 lead. A bleeder, a bloop, and a blast.
It does not feel very good. The first ball that they hit hard is over the fence. The 2 that they hit weakly are on base. So it makes this swing really count for the Brewers and really hurt for Brock.
Ramon Flores stepping in. He takes a strike. It is 0-1. So let's see how Stewart is able to shake off this adversity. 1 ball and 1 strike. Junior Guerra is on deck. In the short center, Trace Thompson.
Four out of 5 balls hit this inning have been hit softly. A couple of them found holes, and the one that was hit hard over the wall. This young man's throwing the ball very well.
Well, you can't get those runs back. You can only look forward. Just thinking about Kazmir's performance on Monday, and that's a base hit into right by Junior Guerra. On Monday getaway day in Pittsburgh, Kazmir gave up 4 in the first, but then would settle down and give up nothing the rest of the way. Bullpen came in to pick him up, and the Dodgers would come back with a 5-4 win. Jonathan Villar, a strikeout victim in his first at-bat. So the Brewers with a 3-0 lead as Villar fouls it off to the left, and it's 0-1. No balls and a strike. Villar lines up base hit into center. Guerra will hold at second. the second inning is nothing like his first.
This ball's slightly up. A changeup's got him out in front, but because it's elevated about 6-8 inches too high, he's able to stay with it and hit the line drive back up the middle. Doing a good job keeping the ball down at the knees or slightly below the knees, but when he has gotten it up, those are the ones they've been barreling up.
Scooter Gennett stepping in. Gennett struck out in his first at bat. With Villar's single to center, that broke a streak of 5 consecutive strikeouts. Villar's been a terrific on base percentage leadoff hitter for the Brewers, but he strikes out a lot. So he kind of goes against the grain. 2 balls, no strikes. Jonathan Villar and Brock Stewart wears Jonathan Broxton's old jersey number 51. Now it's 3 balls and no strikes. So the Dodgers playing shorthanded tonight. Jock Peterson can't go. You've got Chris Taylor, Yasmani Grandal, and Scott Van Slyke who are available. On 3-0. There's a strike, 3-1. Blanton has pitched a lot lately. Baez has pitched a lot lately. So the bullpen is rather thin. The bench is thin. And then the question is with Stewart, who misses low ball 4, how long do you go with him? To what extent, if you have to go to the bullpen, do you, and how early? And then with hopes that Maeda can keep his end of the bargain tomorrow. There's a lot going on inside the head of Dave Roberts, and his pitching coach Rick Honeycutt is going to talk to the young pitcher.
The 3 outings in AAA in Okie City, Brock was able to throw 88, 95, and 94 pitches, and he was averaging around 6 innings a start down there. It was pretty much built up to 100 pitches, but the pitches that he's thrown right now, 39 of them at the big league level, they have been more stressful for sure, just because of the adrenaline and the excitement of being in a big league game.
And do the Dodgers think they can score some runs against Junior Guerra and the Milwaukee staff? So there's a lot going on, and with 2 out, there's more going on as Ryan Braun steps in with the bases loaded, 3 in already. Braun bounced to short in his first at bat. Braun with a 4-game hitting streak and a dozen home runs. 1 ball and no strikes.
A big enough jump to the big leagues. It's a huge jump to have come from A ball, and then to think when you broke camp in 2016, sometime during this year, I'd have bases loaded, 2 out, and face Ryan Braun.
Well hit to center, and Thompson's not going to get it. 1 hop off the wall. Puig does. 2 more are in. It's 5-0 as Gennett is held at third.
Watch the height, watch AJ's glove come up, and watch Ryan Braun's bat meet it. Nice piece of hitting, staying inside the ball and driving it to the gap. Second time around the order right here. The quality of the pitches has gone down, but the mystery of the fastball has been solved by some of these Brewer hitters.
Chris Hatcher is going to be the designated long man tonight. An idyllic first inning for Brock Stewart, and a nightmare second inning. So Lucroy gets the free pass. Carter, who singled and scored a run in this inning. And he's also the 4th leading home run hitter in the National League with 19. Jeanette, Braun, and Lucroy are the runners. 5 runs are in. And a call strike, 0-1. With 1 out, Chris Carter with the shift on broke his bat, and it was about a 100-foot putt to the right side of the infield. That would be a base hit. Hill would bloop a hit to right. Then it got nasty. Neuenhuis a 3-run home run. Flores flied to center. Guerra with a single. VR with a single. He would score a run. Jeanette walks. Braun knocks in 2. It's 5-0 as Carter fouls it back.
It has not been easy out there for him. He threw the ball very well in parts so far. Once they got a few guys on where they had good fortune, he started making a few mistakes.
0-2 to Carter. Well, he strikes out a lot. Carter, the 97th time he has been fanned, but the Brewers score 5, lead 3. We'll go to the 3rd. Test drive. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by the Dodge Challenger. Test drive one at your local Dodge dealer today. The All-Star game played here 14 years ago, and you saw Sean Green right in the middle of the picture. Mike Lowell, Luis Castillo, Adam Dunn, Eric Gagne. And then it rained. A ball and a strike to Brock Stewart. Right-handed thrower, left-handed hitter. Golfs it foul.
Well, late in his college career, that's when the position change came. He had pitched sporadically for his college team, but that's when he really got noticed by the professional scouts from the mound, not in a position like third base where he played.
Originally drafted by the Mets 5 years ago, opted not to sign with the Mets as an infielder. Then he would go to his hometown school, Illinois State, in Normal, Central Illinois, about halfway between St. Louis and Chicago. Did he check his swing? No, he didn't. First out of the third. Again, the other factor, why is he hitting down 5-0? The Dodgers only have 2 bench players at their disposal, plus Yasmani Grandal, the backup catcher.
And they definitely would like Brock to go a few more innings at least. I'm sure they will take his pitch count, if they can, all the way up to around 90 to 95. Try and protect the bullpen as much as they can.
So you got a lot of issues at play in this game tonight, and Chase Utley coming up. Short bench, taxed bullpen, and a rookie pitcher who gave up 5 runs in the second. Utley takes low and outside, 1 ball, no strikes. Corey Seager's on deck. Two and 0 to Utley. Chase in his career .377 at Miller Park. Was 1 for 4 last night. 3 balls and no strikes.
Chase will take at least 1, maybe 2. Down by 5, doesn't matter if he hits a home run. It's about building an inning.
And you've got Seager and Turner next, taking all the way 3-1. Seager's already doubled tonight, extending his hitting streak to 12. Utley takes a strike, 3-2. Thought it might be high.
And taking all the way, he actually tried to duck under it.
One gone in the third. So Guerra falls behind 3-0, comes back to strike out Utley, his 3rd strikeout of the game. There's 2 out. And here comes Seager.
A double in the first. The Dodgers only hit so far. Corey is continually making that push for the All-Star team.
Up the middle, and a diving stab by VR, robbing Seager to end the inning. Jonathan VR robbing his shortstop counterpart. Terrific play. Seager is done, and so are the Dodgers.
That's it. It's a brand new grill. I brought it out just for you.
And we got meat. Plenty of meat as we go to the bottom half of the third. And where would the meat be without some buns? Aaron Hill to Corey Seager in the first out of the third. Kurt Neuenhuis, a 3-run home run in the second inning. He went the other way, worthy of a Carl's Cam replay.
Fastball away, slightly up, did a nice job staying on it, driving it the opposite way, exactly to the part of the plate that it was pitched to, that he hit it to left field.
For Neuenhuis, his 5th home run of the year. In his first 62 games this season, he hit 2. He's hit 3 in his last 5 games. One ball and 1 strike. Kurt Neuenhuis. With Ramon Flores on deck. Now it will be interesting to see how Brock Stewart handled the adversity of the second inning. This is a game based on some success and a lot of failure. And as you know, all of these kids, there's a line drive into right field. That's going to be a base hit. Everybody out on the field at some point was the best player in the schoolyard, high school, college, A-ball, AA, AAA. They all were the best at some point and did not experience a whole lot of failure, or they wouldn't be here. Now all of a sudden they're playing with the best of the best. And how do they cope?
Yeah, that's what we always talk about in development. It's always good when hitters go through slumps and pitchers go through tough times when it's down in the minor leagues, so they build those calluses of how to respond to tough times.
Ramon Flores, the hitter.
If you're the kid that makes as a freshman makes the varsity, and you're a 4-letter guy by the end of time you graduate in a sport, and you've been the key player throughout the time, and then you do it in college the same way, and then you get all the way up to the big leagues through the minor leagues, and you keep doing that, and then you experience your first difficulty up here. Sometimes it can be very hard to take. That is not what's going on with Brock Stewart. He's paid the price. He's had a lot of success this year, being promoted 3 times.
And that's the other thing about playing at the major league level. You're playing in front of everybody.
There's a little more pressure to your failures because everybody knows about them, and you hear from everybody in your family, and your family then hears about it from distant family and friends all the time. Everybody's talking about you, and whether you're doing well or doing poorly, so you really can't escape it. One of the biggest battles is to not form your self-worth around how good you do on the field. But you have down days because you've had a bad outing, and you can't take those feelings and put that into your whole life. You've got to separate the work and the play.
2-2 to Ramon Flores. High and away, 3 balls and 2 strikes. One out. Guerra, the pitcher, is on deck. Not likely that Neuenhuis will go, but there he goes. Fouled off to the left and out of play.
It's a team that likes to run, don't they? Like their manager Craig Counsell, very aggressive on the base path, outstanding base runner in his day, and he wants his guys moving.
67 stolen bases for the Brewers, who lead the National League in that category. Neuenhuis has stolen 6 out of 8.
Craig Counsell putting a lot of faith in Flores at the plate, because if you get a strike him out, throw him out. Now you have your pitcher leading off the next inning. That's why you don't think he should be running. But kind of on a free roll with a 5-0 lead right now. Play aggressive.
The 61st pitch from Stewart. There goes the runner again. Lined in the left field corner, but slicing foul. Well, the theory is if you're going to run once on 3 and 2, you're going to do it again and again and again.
Yeah, and Flores is getting more and more looks there at home plate on being able to put the ball in play. He's fouled off the fastball. He fouled off the last pitch, which was a changeup.
There he goes. Here's the pitch. And out of play. Well, Neuenhuis is getting his wind sprints in.
Brock Stewart on the mound is getting a workout. These are pitches that, if put in play and record an out, or even the base runners get on, you at least trying to get deeper into the game with the 90 or so pitches that he's going to be allowed to throw tonight.
And the next one is the 63rd. And then there'll be a 64th. Neuenhuis is huffing and puffing his way back to first base. If you're just joining us, 24-year-old Brock Stewart, in his major league debut, retired the Brewers in order. 12 pitches in the first inning with 2 strikeouts. It hasn't gone quite as smoothly since.
This will be the 10th pitch of this at bat.
Swung on and missed, strike 3. Throw to second base, a little high, but still a throw by Ellis gets the runner. Neuenhuis caught stealing, and so the Brewers will have their pitcher lead off in the bottom of the 4th. But first, the top of the 4th, and Turner will lead it off for the Dodgers.
Have already used 9 starting pitchers, including Brock Stewart tonight, but more than that, they've had 4 starters already in 2016 make their major league debut. The T-Mobile greater coverage of baseball. Of course, Kenta Maeda is 28, but the majority, almost all of his career in Japan. A rookie this season. Ross Stripling, of course, a tremendous debut. 7 1/3 innings of no-hit baseball. Julio Urias picking up his first win last night. His debut back against the New York Mets in New York, and of course, Brock Stewart tonight. So 9 pitchers, 4 debuts, guys.
Brock Stewart in his first 3 innings, 64 pitches, 39 for strikes. And Justin Turner will lead it off. It'll be Turner, Gonzalez, and Kendricks. So the Dodgers have used 9 different starters this year. It's not yet the 1st of July. Used 16 last year. There's a strike, 0-1. And one of the 9 starters, Alex Wood, was moved from the 15-day disabled list to the 60. Left elbow soreness.
The cavalry begins probably with Brandon McCarthy, coming back from Tommy John surgery. He seems to be on the fastest track. Might see him before the All-Star break, or at least right after it. Ryu is starting to get closer. He's more likely after the All-Star break.
And the Dodgers and their fans are keeping their fingers crossed about Clayton Kershaw's back. He is back in LA, having it looked at
By one of the best, Dr. Robert Watkins.
In fact, Dr. Watkins, among others, performed surgery on Ryan Braun's back. 3-1 to Turner. Takes high. Time to take a look at the Coors Light Cold Hard Facts of the Night. Among all active left-handed hitters, most home runs, only David Ortiz, Ryan Howard, and Prince Fielder have hit more home runs than Adrian Gonzalez. Gonzalez has but 6 so far this year. Walked in his first at bat. Well, the Dodgers can't hit a 5-run home run, so they've got to go station to station here and take, as Joe Torre used to say, small bites. Now remember, the Brewers team ERA is 4.5. It's 10th in the 15-team National League. So statistically, at any rate, they can be had. No balls and 2 strikes to Gonzalez. Dodgers scored 6 runs and 12 hits last night. So Garrett gets ahead of Gonzalez. Adrian has been on base in all 6 plate appearances in this series so far. Down on strikes. 4th strikeout for Junior Guerra. And the first out of the 4th inning. Dave Roberts.
Adrian Gonzalez didn't really like the swing he made, but then he took a glance down at third base and he thought maybe it was catcher's interference. I'm not sure. And then all of a sudden he waved to Dave Roberts, kind of like, oh, don't worry about it, Skip. And the third base umpire looked like he had a problem with that.
Third base umpire Dan Bellino.
This is the check swing 2 pitches ago that Adrian might have had a gripe on. But it was a very quick hook and very sensitive. Adrian is not one to show up umpires, and I don't think he was showing up anybody right there. I think he was actually kind of having a body language discussion with Dave Roberts as he walked to the bench, like, did you think I swung? And Dave's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, I didn't think I swung. And just the hands, the body language, I guess, gets him thrown out.
If Gonzalez has been ejected, that means Van Slyke comes into the game, and you're looking at 1 bench player.
When it rains, it pours. I don't understand how you get thrown out on that one.
Howie Kendrick with 1 out and 1 on. Kendrick bounced to third in his first at bat. Brewers with a 5-0 lead, 1 out, 1 on in the fourth. 1 ball and 1 strike. Somebody's got a souvenir. I'll take it home. There's a strike. 1 and 2 to Howie Kendrick. Kendrick bounced to third in his first at bat and hitting .244. For Junior Guerra, that is his 5th strikeout of the game and the 2nd out of the 4th.
It is that split changeup that really changed his life, that he really perfected in winter ball this last offseason.
And now Trace Thompson, a strikeout victim in his first at bat. A 1-out double for Seager in the first inning, the only hit of the game for the Dodgers to this point. 1 ball, no strikes to Thompson. Trace at .237.
Dodgers need a spark. A little 2-out double right here, something to get them going. Something positive after losing their first baseman with Adrian getting thrown out of the game.
VR and the force out. That will end the inning. No runs, no hits, no errors. A walk and a man left after 3.5. It's the Brewers 5 and the Dodgers nothing. Think of the 4th of July, you think of America's favorite pastimes, Dodger baseball and fireworks. Celebrate this year at the Dodger game against the Orioles and enjoy a post-game fireworks show courtesy of Hawaiian Springs Water. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Scott Van Slyke takes over at first base as Adrian Gonzalez has been thrown out of the game. And with Jock Peterson unable to go, you've only got Chris Taylor and Yasmani Grandal left. Guerra, the pitcher, is 0-2. In the bottom of the 3rd, Neuenhuis on a full count ran from first, floor is a strike him out, throw him out, double play, and thus you've got the pitcher leading off and down on 3 pitches. That's the 5th strikeout for Brock Stewart. So Dave Roberts is in quite a pickle. He's got 1 pinch hitter. And he's got a young pitcher in Stewart who is 67 pitches in. And he's got a bullpen that's huffing and puffing. And his team is down 5-0. Jonathan Villar has struck out, singled and scored a run. Villar 295, switch hitter. 1 ball, 1 strike. And remember, the Dodgers don't have another day off until a week from Sunday when the All-Star break rolls around. Peterson unable to play tonight. Don't know about his immediate future. And Kershaw is back in LA having his back looked at. One and 2 to Villar. Scooter Gennett is on deck. The Dodgers have beaten the Brewers 8 of their last 12 here in Milwaukee. And since Miller Park opened in 2001, they're 27-22 here against Craig Counsell's club, and it's his 2nd year here as the manager. And Villar is making Stewart's life miserable.
Brock Stewart on the mound. He's hitting the glove for AJ. The thing I'd say he's going to be working on after this outing is to find another off-speed pitch other than the slider, which is hard, and then the changeup. There's the changeup right there.
2-2.
Making the slider a little bit bigger and taking some speed off could help an awful lot.
Two balls, 2 strikes. And we'll do it again. Well, the next pitch to Villar will be his 9th. And the 2-2. This is going to be trouble. Villar with an infield hit. Between Stewart and Van Slyke, there was nothing they could do.
That one's in no man's land right there. If Stewart continues on and chases the ball, he's not going to get to the bag in time to get the fleet-footed Villar, and Scott Van Slyke really has no play there at all.
Taking over for Adrian Gonzalez. Gennett has struck out and he has walked. Gennett had the night off last night. A 267 hitter. We're up in Cincinnati. Caught by Van Slyke, and that's your garden variety line drive double play. If not, it's probably a run producing double. No runs, an infield hit, and the hardest hit ball turns into a double play. We go to the 5th. Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Jack in the Box. It's back. The Portobello Mushroom Buttery Jack. Taste it before it's gone at Jack in the Box. Oh, those Harvey's wall bangers. Paul Molitor, future Hall of Famer. Those days, back in the days when the Brewers were in the American League. And now, of course, manager of the Minnesota Twins. Moved from the American League to the National League in 1998. Oh, could they hit? Harvey Keene, the manager. That's the name, Harvey's Wallbangers. Puig with a leadoff single into center field to begin the 5th.
Yasiel's hit well since he got back off the DL. Gave him a blow yesterday, but he had to come in after Jock got hurt on this road trip coming into this night tonight. 5 for 17. So now he is 6 for 19.
A.J. Ellis coming up. Ellis flied to center in his first at bat. A.J. fouls it off to the right, 0-1. Ellis at 208. VR. Jeanette to Carter. That's the way this night's been going for the Dodgers.
They hit some bloops and some bleeders and chopper off the plate. They get 3 hits out of those, and a few of them score because of the home run, and then AJ crushed that ground ball, just got picked.
And again, because there's no bench and a heavily taxed bullpen, down by 5 in the 5th. Stewart bats for himself.
If the Dodger bullpen gets in here soon and all of a sudden the Dodgers climb back into the game and a pitcher spot comes up in the order and it's a bunt situation, you might see somebody like Scott Kazmir, one of the starters, or even Kenta Maeda come up to the plate to do the bunting instead of using the reliever to try and bunt.
In the meantime, Casey Fiend is going to work in the Dodger pen. Stewart is down on strikes, and the Dodgers go in order. After 4.5, Brewers 5-0.
Where it's time for a look at the Quicken Loans Rocket Arms. The first 2 starts from there on your right. Julio Urias for 7 career starts, 1 and 2 with a 4.09, and how familiar that is to Clayton Kershaw for 7 starts, 0 and 2 with a 4.36. 2 rocket arm lefties.
And may Urias' career path travel down the same road as Clayton Kershaw. Braun leads off in the 5th. He doubled home 2 in that 5-run Brewers second inning. And with the double, he extends his hitting streak to 5 games and increases his batting average to .324, 6th in the league. Two balls and a strike. A dozen home runs and 40 runs batted in. Braun lives in Malibu. Of course, he grew up in Southern California. Lucroy on deck and Carter to follow. Stewart, first inning, retired the side in order, struck out 2. And then 11 batters would come to the plate in the second inning when the Brewers scored all 5. And since then, the rookie's kind of settled in. Here's the 2-2, foul back to the screen.
There's some misfortune with him making some really good pitches on right-handed hitters and jamming them and then finding holes. And then that's when the mistakes started to come out of his arm and the Brewers capitalized. But he's settled back in, Charlie. You're right. And hitting the glove a lot more often.
5 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 of them intentional. Bat shatters, and Turner's got it and throws out Braun.
This is one of those same pitches that brought misfortune, but this one is mishit and shatters the bat and actually turns into an out. This bat is shattered into multiple pieces, and Justin Turner just avoids the barrel and makes a clean play over to Scott Van Slyke. Bat boy picking up shrapnel.
Some kindling for the barbecue, for the sausages, the brats. And Lucroy has a walk and a ground out and fouls it back. It's 0-1.
It's very encouraging to see Brock just settle back in after having such a rough second inning. Yasiel's error in right field as far as bobbling the ball was sandwiched into that, kind of put him into a jam, and some pressure on the young fella to make some pitches. But to see him get back in the strike zone and work through this order and keep things in order, as you see the pitch count, the big huge differential there in the second, but everything else has been perfect.
So Stewart trying to settle back in, but his pitch count getting up there. Casey Fiend continues to warm. Jonathan Lucroy was the first catcher to lead the league in doubles back in 2014. At 53 that year. And this year, at roughly the halfway point of the season, he's got 16 of them. And he's the only catcher in history to have 2 7 RBI games in the same season. Only 5 catchers ever had 2 7 RBI games in a career, including Hall of Famers Bill Dickey and Johnny Bench, Smokey Burgess, the old Pirate, Ramon Hernandez, and Lucroy. He's been at or around 300 all year. 301 at the moment, and down on strikes. That's the 6th strikeout of the game. Celebrate the 1981 Dodger World Series Tri-MVP Saturday, July 2nd, as the Dodgers take on the Rockies. First 40,000 fans in attendance receive a 1981 Tri-MVP bobblehead presented by Security Benefit. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. So 2 out, nobody on. And Chris Carter stepping in. Dodgers have the shift on for him, and actually kind of broke his bat in the second inning. And that would, as it turned out, open the floodgates. It was like a putt that went over to the right side. And then after that, Aaron Hill blooped a single to right. Then Neuenhuis a 3-run home run, and the Brewers are off to that 5-run inning. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Chris Carter, who then would strike out in his second at bat.
This is probably going to be Brock Stewart's last batter. 94 pitches. Casey Fiend been throwing alongside him out in the bullpen.
Carter down on strikes for the 2nd time tonight, and the 7th strikeout of the game for Brock Stewart and his family, giving him an ovation. We'll go to the 6th, 5-0 Milwaukee. Brock Stewart getting a pat on the shoulder from manager Dave Roberts. His major league debut has come and gone. One rugged inning, the second, but then he settled in, give up 5 runs and 8 hits. 5 of the runs and 6 of the hits all in the second inning. Finishes with 7 strikeouts, 2 walks, 1 intention. 95 pitches, 63 for strikes. Listening to Professor A.J. Ellis and the postmortem. Leads off.
I think he did very well, Charlie. Other than that really rough inning. I mean, in any big leaguer can have that rough inning, but for him to go out in the first inning and throw strikes and be successful, and then after that rough inning to settle in and give the Dodgers 5. Think about it. If he doesn't have that rough inning with 37 pitch count, he might have been able to go 7 innings. And say he gives up just 2 or 3. That's a really nice, solid big league inning. There's a lot to really learn from and to grow from. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get another opportunity or 2.
Well, he gave up a bleeder, a bloop, and a blast. And then Braun would double in 2. 1 ball, 2 strikes to Chase Utley. 0 for 2 tonight.
I don't know how quick his future is going to come, Brock Stewart, if it's going to be this year and he continues to pitch up here, or if he's going to have to continue to develop. But what I saw tonight, there is a lot to work with. I think the first thing that Rick Honeycutt's going to work on is the stuff that he's got, but I think he'll try and add an off-speed pitch at some point.
Foul territory, Lucroy. First down of the 6th. Well, Roberts was saying before the game today that Urias will be with the Dodgers at least until the All-Star break. Again, we don't know the immediate future of Clayton Kershaw, scheduled to pitch Friday, but they flew him back today, being Wednesday, tomorrow Thursday, to have his back looked at today. The likelihood of him pitching on Friday is probably a very long shot.
There's still hope, but I'm sure there are plans for the ifs and whats.
So you got Urias hanging around for another not quite 2 weeks. And if Kershaw can't go on Friday, somebody has to, because them's the rules. 1-2 to Seager. The 1-2 to Seager is outside the low. 2 balls and 2 strikes. A lot of juggling to be done by manager Dave Roberts.
Certainly, and of course, as we mentioned earlier, Brock Stewart, the 9th starting pitcher used already this season. As far as Friday goes, if Clayton Kershaw can't go, it could be a bullpen game. Carlos Frias is in the mix to potentially at least be a part of that bullpen game, not really necessarily stretched out to start anymore. Mike Bolsinger is not an option for Friday's start. Dave Roberts also said the organization certainly has talked about possibly having to bring somebody else in outside of the organization. They are certainly considering all options at this point.
So that's where the Dodgers are. And here we are in Milwaukee as Seager launches one to left. But there's Ryan Braun. Two out, and Justin Turner coming up. And again, as many innings as the Dodger bullpen has thrown in the past few weeks, the last thing in the world they want to do, certainly ideally they don't want to do, is have a bullpen game. Johnny Holstaff is tired.
Yeah, those guys are getting enough work, but it could end up, like Alana suggested, as a bullpen game. But maybe a guy like Carlos Frias is counted on for 3 or 4 or 5 innings. 5 would be a lot, but if you get 3 or 4 out of somebody, then the bullpen could maybe work the rest of that game.
1 ball, 1 strike. J.P. Howell is warming in the Dodger pen at the moment. To third, foul ball.
Justin Turner back in there today. Had one day where made an awkward swing in the last game in Pittsburgh and had to come out for defensive reasons and couldn't really do much yesterday. They gave him another day to rest and prove that he was healthy. So the cramping that he had has subsided and he's been fully tested back in there today.
Here's the 1-2 inside and low, 2-2.
Here's the awkward swing that he made in the last game in Pittsburgh, and all of a sudden from then on in that at bat he was stretching his right hamstring, continually trying to keep it loose, so that cramp set in, and that's when Chris Taylor moved over from short to third.
And Turner grounds to short, and the Dodgers are done in order after 5.5. Milwaukee 5 and the Dodgers nothing.
J.P. Howell on the hill, on in relief as Stewart's night is done. A happy birthday is in order for Dodger longtime pitching coach Rick Honeycutt. Honeycutt turning 62 years of age today. Again, the longest tenured coach that the Dodgers currently have on their staff. And as far as the longest tenured pitching coach, well, he ranks right up there. Look at the NL West. Apparently people don't want to leave the NL West. Dave Righetti of the Giants back in 1999 was hired in that spot. Don Cooper of the Pale Hose. Darren Balsley right down the road from LA, and San Diego hired back in 2003. Roger McDowell of the Braves, and of course Honeycutt has been here a very long time. Think of the managers that have come and gone since he's been around. And of course right now talking to Dave Roberts. Guys, happy 62nd, honey.
62 years young. He took over the Dodgers in 2006, and since that time the Dodgers have the lowest ERA in Major League Baseball, 3.64. His 11th season, 4th longest tenure in baseball. So congratulations to Rick Honeycutt, who was a mentor of yours.
We were teammates and catch buddies. He was one of the vets that broke me in, including guys like Bert Hooton and Jerry Royce, Pat Zachary.
One of the game's best, alongside the rookie manager Dave Roberts. 2 balls and a strike to Aaron Hill, who has singled and scored a run tonight. 5 runs, 8 hits for Milwaukee, no runs, 2 hits for the Dodgers.
I said to Pat Zachary one day, he said, "Are you going to buy a house when I got to the big leagues?" He goes, "No, I'm not going to buy a house until I'm secure. I'm going to be here." And Rick said, "You're never going to be secure. You're going to be here. Just buy the house if you think it's the right thing to do."
Into right field for a base hit. Aaron Hill with a leadoff single. Not going to test Puig's arm. Zachary, of course, pitched with the Reds and the Mets.
One day in spring training, the wind was blowing so hard that as pitchers were lifting their leg, they were actually almost getting knocked off. Pat Zachary, as a joke, went out and put 2 5-pound barbell weights in his pants pockets and pitched with barbells in his back pocket. It was hilarious.
Kirk Neuenhuis. 1 ball, no strikes. Neuenhuis, the big blast of the game, a 3-run home run in the 2nd inning. It was his 5th of the year. Pat Zachary may be best remembered being part of the trade that sent Tom Seaver to Cincinnati, what they called in New York the Midnight Massacre. That's Chris Hatcher warming up back in 1977. Nice play by Van Slyke to throw back. There will be no throwback. And that's the first down in the 6th inning.
Scott Van Slyke will play an awful lot of places and playing very well. Comes off here and uses the momentum with the backhand to get the ball to Corey Seager. Corey smartly eating the ball and not risking the throw.
Now Ramon Flores coming up. He's 0 for 2. Imagine being part of a trade in which Tom Seaver was sent out of town. Seaver had a terrible falling out with the Mets chairman, M. Donald Grant. And there was an old sports columnist in New York, Dick Young, fiery guy, and he was all over Seaver. And they traded one of the all-time great pitchers for Zachary and a bunch of other guys, Doug Flynn, Steve Henderson, and Dan Norman. But Zachary was kind of like the big name in the deal, and there was an enormous amount of pressure when he came in. So he was at the back end of his career when you crossed paths with him.
Yep. I think my first mentor when I got to the big leagues was Bert Hooten. He was nice enough to drive me in from Orange County, from where we both lived in that area, and I could only afford 1 car at the time. So for my wife to get into the game, we had to leave the car at home, and Bert was nice to swing by, pick me up for the commute in.
That was pre-Hershiser fleet. It was just 1 car.
Well, I think we have a few now, but they're not mine. The kids are all driving them.
Pre-fleet.
Pre-fleet, yeah.
Junior Guerra, the pitcher, is on deck. The runner goes. The pitch is a strike, and strike him out, throw him out. That'll end the inning. That's the 2nd time tonight A.J. Ellis has thrown out a runner. Neuenhuis can't believe it. He's standing there waiting, hoping. 2 for 2. Got it.
The strike two pitch is hit back to the box, dribbling to second. Samuel on the bag, throws to first, double play. Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter. If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky.
26 years ago tonight, when Fernando threw 119 pitches, struck out 7, walked 3, and the no-hitter. Now here's Van Slyke, his first at-bat. Adrian Gonzalez, after checking his swing and being called out on strikes, said something unkind and was thrown out of the game. So Van Slyke came in. And again, because of the Peterson injury, and Kike Hernandez placed on the disabled list today. The Dodgers are down to Chris Taylor and Yasmani Grandal on the bench. Peterson is in uniform, but not going to be available tonight for sure. Tomorrow night, more than likely not, when they get back to Los Angeles tomorrow night. And first thing Friday, they'll take a good close look at Peterson's right shoulder. Easy hopper to Aaron Hill.
And fans might be wondering why they don't immediately DL Jock. They're giving him a few days to see if he can be healthy enough to start playing again. And the DL won't be as long if they have to put him on the DL, because they'll be able to make it retroactive back to the last time he appeared in a game. The Dodgers just evaluating the timing of all that, and of course Jock's health.
And you throw into the mix the All-Star break after the 10th. Howie Kendrick fouls it off his foot. Dave Roberts has a lot of balls to juggle. Who to play, who can play, who's available, who's not. Bullpen has been working long and hard. Last night, after the Orioles start, Libator, Baez, Blanton, and Jansen pitched. On the Monday matinee in Pittsburgh, after Kazmir's 5 innings, Coleman, Howell, Blanton, Baez, and Jansen pitched. Kershaw gave the bullpen a rest on Sunday. So these guys have been working hard. On Saturday, after Maeda's 5 innings, Blanton, Baez, and Howell. On Friday, after the Tepish start, Coleman, Howell, Fiend, and Hatcher. They've been working. So the fact that the Dodgers were able to get 5 innings out of Stewart tonight after the shaky second, all charity happily accepted. 2-2 to Kendrick. Did he go around? Yep. Tom Hallion. That's strikeout number 7.
There's no real day really where the bullpen goes down to the pen and thinks, okay, we're going to get the night off tonight, or we got a chance to get the night off tonight. Really what they're hoping that the starters will go 5 or 6, and they know 3 or 4 of them are probably going to be in there. And especially with the bullpen, the way it's been so successful with Dave Roberts and Rick Honeycutt matching up to the opposing lineup. Nobody really in general goes more than an inning. A lot of times you get a third out of somebody and then 2/3 out of somebody else to get through the inning, but it's been working masterfully, but just maybe a little too often.
Yeah, we're not even at the halfway point of the season, which is why you hear that tired cliche. It's a tired cliche, but it's true. It's a marathon and not a sprint. 1-1 to Trace Thompson, who's 0 for 2. Meanwhile, Junior Guerra has a 2-hit shutout going, and he has retired 10 of his last 11 Dodger hitters, and he struck out 4 of them. 5-0 Milwaukee with 2 out in the top of the 7th.
Junior Guerra is a prime example of why I'm so excited about Brock Stewart. Well, you saw that you are a grip change away from really being successful at the big league level. A split change that really changed his life as far as his effectiveness. And with Brock Stewart, we have a great fastball that's got good movement. He's not afraid to throw strikes. He's got an outstanding changeup. Might be able to get a little grip change on the slider to make it a little bit better.
And another 1-2-3 inning for Junior Guerra. 7th inning stretch. Brewers 5-9-0. The Dodgers no runs and 2 hits. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Shop online at choosenissan.com. And by Carl's Jr., the California Classic Double Cheeseburger for just $2.49 at Carl's Jr. Boy, nothing says Milwaukee like a good old-fashioned sausage race, which has become a staple here at Miller Park. He's a walking photo op, for goodness sakes. Chris Hatcher now on in relief for the Dodgers. In the bottom half of the 7th inning, J.P. Howell went an inning, 12 pitches, 7 for strikes. Well, Junior Guerra had himself a base hit and a run scored. In that 5-run second, he has since struck out. And Guerra's been struck out a second time. When you think of the 4th of July, you think of America's favorite pastimes, Dodger baseball, and of course fireworks. Celebrate this year at the Dodger Orioles game and enjoy our post-game fireworks show courtesy of Hawaiian Springs Water. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions. Jonathan VR. It's a fastball low and away, 1 ball and no strikes. VR tonight is 2 for 3 and a run score. Little chopper. This could now be trouble. Utley not going to make the play. Once it got over Hatcher's head, VR was good for his 3rd hit of the night.
Brewers have hit some balls hard, one that cleared the fence, but they also have hit about 4 like this tonight that have been bleeders and bloops that have found their way to being singles. Nothing you can do about that one.
Now VR, let's not forget, leads the National League with 26 stolen bases, and then which raises the question of protocol. If you've got a 5-run lead, the other guys have 2 base hits, do you steal? And if so, at what cost? Into short center, there's Corey Seager. There are those who will say when the other guys stop hitting, we'll stop running.
Especially when it's a big part of your game. Managers that have teams that base a lot of their offense on the stolen base, they don't usually believe in stopping a portion of their offense.
Now Ryan Braun. A big 2-run double in the 2nd inning. And 4 batters later, Kurt Neuenhuis a 3-run home run. 5-0 Milwaukee, and that's the way it's been since the 2nd inning. To right field and deep. Back goes Puig at the wall. Gone. A home run. Ryan Braun's 13th home run of the year, and the Brewers lead it 7-0.
Let's take a look at Ryan Braun in this home run as our Morongo Casino Resort and Spa slow-mo cam. It has not been a good night for the Dodgers at all when Morongo is the label we use for a Ryan Braun home run, but he hit it well. Yasiel Puig made it a good effort, and hopefully he's healthy. We don't need the Dodgers dropping like flies.
Favoring his left leg.
Take another look at Yasiel crashing into the wall/fencing, where the left foot or ankle took the brunt of it.
Now Lucroy takes a strike. Ryan Braun tonight 2 for 4 and 4 RBIs. Kurt Neuenhuis a 3-run home run. 7 Brewer runs. Lucroy 0 for 2 and a walk. That's the 7th home run of the season surrendered by Hatcher in 31 innings. So Braun with 2 hits tonight has a 10-game hitting streak. One ball, 2 strikes. Chris Carter is on deck. There's 2 out and 2 in the bottom of the 7th. Into right center field for a base hit. Puig cuts it off and holds Lucroy to a single.
Yasiel still nursing that leg, walking with a limp. Made a very nice play on that ball in the gap, though, to backhand it and the accurate throw into second.
Now Carter, 4th leading home run hitter in the National League with 19 of them. He's also 2nd in the league, having been struck out 98 times. Trevor Story of the Rockies, their power hitting rookie shortstop, leads the National League in strikeouts. Brock Stewart talking with Julio Urias. Stewart is an old man as compared to Urias, who's 19. Stewart, 24. Out of the Missouri Valley Conference, Illinois State. Brock Stewart. 1-1 with 2 out. 1-2. First pitch tomorrow morning at 11 Pacific time. Matinee here in Milwaukee. Kenta Maeda, Zach Davies, and then the Dodgers fly home. And Carter is down on strikes for the 3rd time tonight. But Ryan Braun goes the other way. A 2-run home run. His 13th of the year. We go to the 8th. Milwaukee 7-zip. Probables brought to you by your Southern California Chevy dealers. Kenta Maeda in his 16th start, looking for his 7th win. Zach Davies, 6'3" and about 155 pounds, but that has not stopped him in search of his 6th win of the year. And by the looks of it, that will be the rubber game of the 3-game series. Yasiel Puig leading off in the 8th. Takes low, 1 ball, no strikes.
That'll be a very important game as far as momentum for the Dodgers going into this last homestand before the All-Star break. Losing 3 out of 4 in Pittsburgh, turning it around with the first one here, and this one doesn't look like it's going to end up in the right column unless they really get off the canvas for a big comeback. So the whole goal in a year is to win as many series as you can, and you'll have a chance to win it tomorrow.
So over the weekend, you got the Rockies in Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then July 4th, the Orioles for 3. And then the final 4 games with the Padres before the All-Star break. Final game before the break Sunday, July the 10th. And after the break, the Dodgers will go to Arizona, Washington, and St. Louis. Fleece blankets will not be needed on that trip.
No, I don't think so. It's pretty high humidity there on the East Coast.
And just the desert in Arizona. Two balls and 2 strikes to Yasiel Puig, who's 1 for 2 tonight. Dodgers have 2 hits. Seager had doubled in the first, extending his hitting streak to 12 games. And Puig with the single to center. He's also bounced to third. And it's now 3-2. So Guerra into the 8th inning. This will be his longest start. He's had 2 starts in which he's gone 7. Next pitch will be his 101st. 113 is the highest pitch count he's had this year. That's VR. And Puig hobbled his way down to first.
As far as any more players, we're down to fumes. Remember, Yasiel crashed into the fence in right field on Ryan Braun's home run, and he's hobbling just coming out of the box, doing the best he can to stay in there.
One out, A.J. Ellis. A.J. tonight has flied to center and bounced into a double play. Fouls it off to the right, and it's 0-1. Dodgers began the road trip with their 6-game winning streak. Then they lost 3 in a row. Got the final game in Pittsburgh. Won the first one last night. Coming into this one, they had won 8 of 11. And a right center. Jeanette had a long way to go to get it, and he did. And now again, with the bench being what it is, the bullpen being what it is, Chris Hatcher is going to bat for himself. It's been 11 days since Hatcher had his only big league hit.
Chris Hatcher's first RBI was against these Brewers. This line drive. Remember, he was a position change guy. Used to be a catcher. At his own admission, a light hitting catcher that couldn't hit a slider.
That's how Hatcher the catcher became Hatcher the pitcher. 0-2 to Chris Hatcher. Two out, top of the 8th. One ball, 2 strikes. So the stories of the night tonight: Brock Stewart's major league debut. Gave up 5 runs and 5 hits. Correction, 5 runs and 8 hits in 5 innings. 1 bad inning. Adrian Gonzalez got thrown out of the game, arguing a check swing call. The third base umpire, Dan Bellino. So Dave Roberts has had little stock on the shelf. So Van Slyke had to come in off the bench. Peterson can't play because of the shoulder injury he suffered last night. And Hatcher with a slow ground ball to short. He can run. Just out by a step in the inning. No runs, no hits, no errors, nobody left. We go to the bottom of the 8th. The Brewers by a touchdown and an extra point. to Dodgers.com to choose your hashtag ASG worthy stars and send them to the MLB All-Star Game presented by MasterCard on July the 12th in San Diego. Vote now. Voting ends this Thursday at 11:59 Eastern Time p.m. Vote at Dodgers.com/vote. So the Dodgers, by necessity, have to make some moves. Van Slyke moves from first base to right. Puig injured himself earlier in the game. Turner moves from third to first. And the last bench player is not on the bench anymore. That's Chris Taylor, the newest Dodger. So on this night, the Dodgers have been falling apart at the seams. Yasmani Grandal is the backup catcher, and that's all they've got. Peterson unavailable to play. Aaron Hill takes a strike, 0-1. One ball, one strike to Aaron Hill, who's 2 for 3 tonight. It has been one of those nights you just pick up your bats and balls, equipment bag, and go home and coming back tomorrow.
We could erase the second inning, but also Junior on the mound for the Brewers has been outstanding. Only the 2 hits.
A double for Seager, a single for Puig. Puig on the home run hit by Ryan Braun over the fence in right. Landed awkwardly and trying to make the leap. Don't know, his ankle, hip, whatever it was. Puig's last at bat at the top of the 8th. He grounded to short and hobbled his way to first base.
He was doing everything he could to stay in the game. He knows how short the roster is right now. And very few replacements and no moves for Dave Roberts. But he limped around out there in the outfield, made a nice play in right center, and then came in to hit. That's when it showed up again. He couldn't really run to first base.
Giants and A's in Oakland tonight. They're playing in the second inning. There's no score. A 3-2. Ground ball to short, backhanded by Seager. That is the first out of the bottom of the 8th. Kurt Neuenhuis, who did the most damage to the Dodgers, and in particular Brock Stewart, in the second inning when he hit a 3-run home run. One ball and no strikes to the former Met. Born in Southern California, grew up in Denver, and then went to college at Azusa Pacific. Broke into the bigs with the Mets in 2012. They put him on waivers 2 days before Christmas. It's not very charitable. But there were the Brewers, and he was a Christmas gift.
It's the hot stove season. There's holidays all around the big moves in the offseason. Something could happen around Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
And coal in your stocking.
You can be sitting around with your family in the offseason at a very happy time, and all of a sudden your life can get turned upside down, or your life could actually take a turn for the good and get a nice contract offer as a free agent or something, and all of a sudden everything changes.
Neuenhuis at 2 1/4. Fly ball to right. There's Van Slyke. Second out of the 8th. It'll bring up Ramon Flores. It'll be the top of the order for the Dodgers in the 9th. And that's Michael Blazek. Junior Guerra, 109 pitches, 66 for strikes. The Brewers do not have a complete game this season. You have to go back to July 11th of last year, where Taylor Youngman beat the Dodgers 7-1. Two 2-0 to Flores. He struck out twice and flied to center. Three balls and no strikes. Jake Elmore, one of the famous Blues Brothers, is in the on-deck circle. You know, I love fans when they scream out "Baba Booey" or whatever it is, swing batter. Like those guys are listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, that's going to throw me off. 3-1. He said nothing. It was ball 4. So a 2-out walk, and here's Jake Elmore. Elmore called up just yesterday. Had been working at Colorado Springs. Played 57 games there and hit .320 with a couple of home runs. He took the place of Alex Presley, who was designated for assignment. So Junior Guerra with his best performance of his career. 8 innings, no runs and 2 hits. 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. 109 pitches, 66 for strikes. 1 ball and 1 strike to Jake Elmore. Ball, a strike, and 2 out. Elmore takes low, and it's 2-1. This is the 80th game of the season for the Dodgers. After tomorrow, the halfway mark. 2-2.
It ends up 43-37 like it looks like, and all the hurdles that they've come through and all the injuries. They've had the most DL time of any big league organization this year. They're still fighting and scratching. Only 6 back of the Giants going into the day.
Elmore's done. That ends the Brewers' 8th. Last licks for the Dodgers with Utley, Seager, and Turner coming up. Cheeseheads galore. On Sportsnet LA is brought to you by BMW. See a Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers or visit SoCalBMW.com. Dodgers have 3 outs left and they trail by a bundle. It'll be the top of the order in the 9th. That's Michael Blazek making his 29th appearance. Opponents are hitting .290 against him. 22 strikeouts in nearly 27 innings.
He's out there to get some work and restore the confidence of the Milwaukee Brewers in his abilities.
Meanwhile, Junior Guerra, the 31-year-old right-hander, making his manager, Craig Counsell, proud tonight. No runs and 2 hits in 8 innings. So, longest start of his career, second most pitches he's thrown. And he scattered 2 hits, striking out 7, walking 2. One of the 7 strikeouts, Utley, 0 for 3 tonight. Quick turnaround for these clubs. They'll be back at the yard about 9 o'clock tomorrow morning Central Time. And then the Dodgers will fly home after the game tomorrow. 1 ball, 1 strike to Utley. Chase at 257. It's been a long month of June for Utley. Utley's been hovering right around 200 most of the month. 1 and 2. Fly ball well hit to center field. Heading on back and tracking it down is Kirk Neuenhuis. Blazek can take a deep breath. Now Corey Seager. Seager 1 for 3. Now has a season high 12-game hitting streak. Leads all National League shortstops with 91 hits. Dodgers in danger of being shut out for the 4th time this season. Nothing in 2 to Corey Seager.
Be no time to sulk. Quick turnaround with the day game tomorrow, trying to win the series. There'll be a sting definitely, but you'll have to wash it off very quickly.
Down to the final out. So the Dodgers will bus back to the hotel and they'll jam their dirty laundry into their bags. Play tomorrow and be home tomorrow night. Should be landing in about 24 hours. 2 out, nobody on, and Justin Turner 0 for 2 and a walk. Justin at 248, 11 home runs and 38 runs batted in. Two out, 9th inning. 1-1. Blazek, born, raised, and still lives in Las Vegas. Two balls and a strike. Came up with the Cardinals and then traded here. Remember big John Axford, the Canadian? Well, Axford was traded from here to St. Louis. Lasik came here. Three balls, a strike, and 2 out. 9th inning. To right, drifting back is Flores, and that's your ball game. Dodgers have been shut out for the 4th time this season. Milwaukee 7 runs, 12 hits, no errors. The Dodgers no runs, 2 hits, and 1 error. And you're looking at the Lexus player of the game, Ryan Braun. Braun, a 2-run double in the 2nd and a 2-run home run in the 7th. He knocked in 4 of the 7 as the Brewers shut out the Dodgers 7-0. So that is a wrap for us from Milwaukee. For Earl Hershiser and Alana Rizzo, I'm Charlie Steiner saying good night and goodbye, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. For now, we'll send it back to Access Sportsnet Dodgers, brought to you by your Southern California Nissan dealers.